So just a few days to go until the Oscars, and while most of the attention is on big-budget Hollywood productions, there are plenty of smaller films hoping to be recognised. Amongst them, two controversial documentaries offering different accounts of the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians, as our Middle East correspondent Sam Kiley explains. And a warning that this report contains flash photography.
Third camera down, smashed by an Israeli rubber bullet. Two more cameras would be destroyed as they chronicled the struggle of a Palestinian village against Israeli occupation. This Oscar-nominated film evolved from the simple desire of a father to record his son's first years.
And there's your Oscar nomination.
Yes.
An amateur with dozens of international awards, Imad's 5 broken cameras remain his favourite trophies.
This one saved my life, this camera. I think the Oscar to be there, will draw big attention to the Palestinian situation from the people and the international community, and this is what's important for me.
Settlements which are illegal under international law are seen as a roadblock to peace by the UN, the US and the United Kingdom. 5 broken cameras shot largely on this location next to an Israeli settlement is a document that reveals just how brutal and bloody for the Palestinians living under Israeli occupation is. But another film, also up for an Oscar, examines how bad and how damaging it can be for the Israelis to be a state of occupation. And the voices in it are none other than the last 6 heads of Israel's secret police. Israel's occupation of Palestinian lands has generated violence on both sides. The secret policemen agree the occupation must end.
When you are fighting terrorism and when you are going in the middle of the night to arrest people who deserve an arrest because either they're killed or they are aiming to kill somebody, you feel the human tragedy, you feel the human feeling of another nation, that some of them deserve prison. Most of them deserve freedom and deserve their own state.
Thanks to the Oscars, the tragedy of the occupation may now be understood by Hollywood.
One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
With a visit to the region by the US President Barack Obama slated next month, both sides now cling to the hope that he can write them a happy ending. Sam Kiley, Bill In on the West Bank.
Well, joining us now from New York is Joel Braunold. He blogs the Israeli news website haaretz.com. Thank you for being with us. One of the interesting things about both these documentaries is that they've actually received some subsidy and support from official Israeli sources.
I think what's fascinating is that both of these documentaries tell the same story of the occupation, but from the lenses of each people's. So 5 Broken Cameras, literally through the lens of the Palestinian landowner, sees his land being confiscated. And then the Gatekeepers from the Israeli paradigm of security tells the same story of the occupation and come to the same conclusion, that the occupation has to end. And that, I think, is the most fascinating thing about both of these films, that from the perspectives of each population, they reach to the same conclusion.
But they are produced from Israel, perhaps giving an insight into the dialogue within Israel that's perhaps not often seen by the international community.
I think that's a very good point. Both films received money from the Israeli state, from the Israeli taxpayers, from the film funds. So both have, while films don't have national ownership, they were both supported by a very eclectic and pluralistic artistic society in Israel. But the important thing is not to concentrate on where the funding came from, but fundamentally by the content of these films, which is something that all 3 of the directors, I'm sure, what they want the public to focus on.
In the case of the one talking to the veterans of the security business in Israel, I mean, it is very interesting that the opponents of a two-state solution very often say, well, actually, how can you have a secure Israel with an independent Palestine just across its borders? Yet they're actually taking on that argument head on.
It's a fascinating point, Adam, and why I think the Gatekeepers is so revolutionary in terms of how it reframes the debate. Often, many supporters of Israel will look at the stories like 5 Broken Cameras and claim, well, you don't understand the security dynamics, you're not sure. But the Gatekeepers demonstrates by the 6 former heads of the Israeli secret police, the Shin Bet, categorically tell you to camera that the occupation is corrosive and that the security argument doesn't maintain if you maintain opposition against the two-state solution, that mandates that you need to get there. And organizations like OneVoice that I work for are desperately trying to help generate that support on the ground, both in Israel and Palestine, in parallel making that case that occupation and security are two sides of the same coin.
Well, we know that films, entertainment films with a Holocaust theme often appeal to the Academy. Do you think either of these films has a chance of actually taking the Oscar for documentaries?
I personally think that one of them will win, and I think that what you're seeing is that the Oscars, which normally looked at the narratives of the Holocaust, are looking now at the Middle East conflict specifically as a documentary rather than just as a narrative film. And in that way, I think that the film directors should be very proud of their achievements. But I know that all 3 of them would, rather than win the Oscar, make sure that everyone within Israel managed to actually see these films and actually reflect and react on them.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.